Well, thank you for joining us here on KARE News Now. I'm Jason Hackett. Let's get right to your headlines. We're starting our show at the Capitol, where some lawmakers are proposing a big crackdown on cell phones in schools across the state. Michelle Beck is here with details.
Hey, the bill might feel like a drastic measure to some, but one of the bill's authors says cell phones are driving concerns like cyberbullying and trouble concentrating, issues that have become way too common for students, they say. That's why some lawmakers and educators are pushing for Senate Bill 508. The text says starting fall 2026, school districts must ban cell phones and smartwatches for K through 8th graders across the entire school. It's more nuanced for high school, saying the ban will only apply in classrooms, and all this comes with exceptions. While the House has yet to even see this bill, a law would put Minnesota among states with stricter cell phone bans, which some teachers want to see.
Having to tell people multiple times to put their phones away just to get started on their learning activity, that's a waste of time, and that's not time spent on learning.
As parents, my wife and I, we have peace of mind by being able to track his location, ensuring his safe arrival and departure from school.
Separate from the bill, schools are already embracing change. Within about a month, they must have some kind of district-wide cell phone policy, and that's based on a new state law, which also tells principals to lessen the impact of phones on student behavior, mental health, and academic success. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. This morning, a federal judge is extending a pause on the deadline set by President Trump for federal workers to accept a deferred or resignation offer or a buyout. That judge also stopping the government from soliciting more of those buyouts. Last week, the White House said 60,000 federal workers had already accepted the deal. Meantime, President Trump says he could announce sweeping new tariffs to match tariffs that other countries put on American goods. It comes after Trump's executive order placing a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports, which could impact auto, aerospace, and oil production industries. One executive order from the Trump administration that raised eyebrows but also has not gotten much pushback is literally pinching pennies. The president is asking the U.S. Mint to stop making pennies because they aren't worth what they cost to make. So our Kent Erdahl is here to make sense of what a future without pennies might mean.
You can spend a pretty penny on a penny at Crystal Coin and Collectibles. But if you want the owner's 2 cents...
I mean, how often are you using pennies?
Mike Carter admits he's no penny apologist.
It's kind of an irrelevant coin nowadays. It feels weird saying that coming from a coin dealer, but...
I was just going to say that. What are you talking about?
It's kind of wasting money to keep striking them when there's so many already out in circulation still.
According to the Federal Reserve, there are at least 114 billion pennies in circulation. But because so few return to retailers after being doled out in change, the Fed spends about $192 million a year to produce them at a cost of more than 3 cents per cent.
This seems like an easy place to save a bit of money to me.
Tyler Schipper with the University of St. Thomas says a 2022 Federal Reserve study estimated that pinching the penny could save up to $100 million a year, although nickels, which cost nearly 14 cents to produce last year, could complicate that.
So if everything is rounded to the nearest nickel, does the Mint need to start producing more nickels? And does that offset some of the cost savings from this? And I don't know that we have a good answer to that.
Speaking of rounding,
I'm actually interested to see what's going to happen.
U of M marketing professor George John says when it comes to pricing, the power of the penny is more mental than monetary.
There's a fancy word for it. We call it rational inattention. You kind of ignore that last digit. And that's why you see so many nines.
When Canada ditched the penny in 2013, a study found grocery stores did tend to round up their prices instead of down. And while it didn't amount to a lot, it illustrates why change is hard.
It is a sign of inflation. It's a tangible sign of inflation. And that's why governments hesitate to do it.
I'm kind of indifferent about it. I think...
It doesn't sound like you're indifferent. It sounds like you're like, get them out of here.
Yeah. I mean, kind of, because we're still seeing wheat pennies in circulation, and those haven't been struck since 1959. Why are we still striking modern pennies when they're not being used?
Well, over in Paris, Vice President J.D. Vance warning Europeans that the U.S. intends to remain a dominant force in artificial intelligence and push back against the European Union's tougher regulatory approach to the technology. Raph Sanchez is in Paris with details.
Vice President J.D. Vance making his debut on the world stage, giving the keynote address at an AI summit here in Paris, speaking to an audience that included the French president, the Prime Minister of India, and senior leaders from China. Vice President Vance delivered a full-throated America First vision on artificial intelligence. He said the Trump administration is determined to keep the United States as the preeminent global superpower when it comes to AI. He said the U.S. is open to cooperation with allies in Europe and further afield, but that it will be on America's terms. He warned against any excessive regulation which might damage the American AI industry. He didn't name China, interestingly, but he did warn European countries about becoming dependent on authoritarian regimes for their supply chains when it comes to AI and other advanced technologies. He also delivered a little domestic political red meat, railing against what he called woke AI models, giving the example of an image generator that showed George Washington as a black man. So a little domestic politics on the international stage. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Paris.
Well, back here at home, after months of back and forth, the Timberwolves and the Lynx appear to be getting new owners. Audrey Russo is here with the ruling and what's next for the teams.
Minnesota Pro Basketball is set on a new course this morning. Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez will now turn over $950 million to buy out the rest of Glenn Taylor's ownership stake in the Lynx and the Timberwolves. That is, of course, pending the final stamp of approval from the NBA Board of Governors. That process is expected to go somewhat smoothly. Now, this decision ends a 10-month legal battle. Glenn Taylor initially pulled back on the deal to sell the teams to Lore and A-Rod. In the last 12 hours, Taylor released a statement saying he was disappointed by the 2-1 decision from the panel and that he's reviewing it before making any additional comments. Lore and A-Rod also released a statement saying that they are excited to move forward with the process. So what does that look like? Well, we spoke to basketball writer John Krasinski, who tells us after the deal goes through the NBA Board of Governors, A-Rod and Lore have their sights set on a new TV deal and a new stadium for both of the teams. Back to you.
All right, Audrey, thank you so much. New video this morning of a deadly jet crash at the Scottsdale Airport in Arizona. According to the FAA, the jet veered off the runway and hit another parked plane. 2 pilots and 2 passengers were on the plane. One of the people on board was killed and the other 3 were hurt. NBC News right now reporting that the plane belongs to Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil, but he was not on the plane at the time. An investigation into what caused the crash is underway. A funeral has now been set for Chris Malin, the Border Patrol agent from Minnesota who was killed during a traffic stop last month. His family says he'll be laid to rest Saturday, February 22nd at Fort Snelling National Cemetery. The ceremony will be open to the public. Malin was 44 years old. One of the Fargo police officers who was shot during an ambush attack 2 years ago is now back on the job. Andrew Dotis was seriously hurt after being shot multiple times during a routine traffic stop. Minnesota native officer Jake Wallin was killed in that attack, and 2 more people were also seriously hurt. After 9 surgeries and 18 months of recovery and rehabilitation, Dotis returned to duty yesterday. Now, while he was still dealing with a number of health challenges, he says he is focusing on the positive.
I'm a glass half full type of guy, and I could be in a wheelchair or things could be a lot worse. And so I'm just very grateful that the things I'm dealing with, I try to look at them from a good perspective rather than a negative. And that's with everything in life as well.
Officer Tyler Hawes, who was also shot in the attack, returned to duty last week. Make sure you stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.